Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter, and I am so excited because it is time for the Essentials by Ellen Holiday 2015 release blog hop. And I'm going to flip through the new release here. All of these have coordinating dies. This is the Got Candy stamp set. I also have another video tutorial featuring this stamp set that's going up today, so be sure to check that one out as well. This is the mistletoe and holly stamp set. I adore this. You know that I love Christmas, and these images are beautiful, and I love the sentiments as well. And of course, I have the coordinating dies for those as well. And I'm going to be using some of these today to create this card that I'm working on here. This is the Elf stamp set, some fun little greetings and these little elves. Also that candy, which works well for Halloween as well. And then we have the coordinating dies there. This is the Thankful stamp set. Now this at first glance seems very fall or Thanksgiving, but look at some of these images. They can be used year-round for creating cards, and this Thankful for You greeting, of course, can be used year-round as well. And finally, there's the Mondo Poinsettia stamp set and die. This is gorgeous. I am sharing a project over on my blog featuring this as a tag project, so be sure to check that out. I don't have the video tutorial for it yet, but keep your eyes peeled because I will have that. So I have this mistletoe and holly stamp set and die set, and I'm going to be creating a wreath card with this. So I'm going to start by separating some of the dies. Now you can bend them back and forth just like this and they break apart very easily, or you can use some die snips like the Elizabeth Craft die snips to separate them. So I'm starting with a piece of Nina Solar White cardstock. This is the 80-pound cardstock, and I have a We Are Memory Keepers nesting circle die that I'm going to use as my guide to create my wreath. Now I have my Big Shot and I have the platform on tab 1, and then I have my first cutting plate down, and I'm going to put this tan Spellbinders embossing mat down because I want to emboss or deboss this circle onto my paper. And I have that circle butted all the way up against the corner, and I'm going to put my other cutting plate on top and run that through, and you can see I am left with an embossed line. Now this is just going to serve as a guide for me. You could actually pencil this in, but I didn't want to have to go back and erase any pencil lines, so this is a good way to do it. Now I have this pine stamp here, and I'm going to mount it on my block, and I've just curved it just a little bit to match the curve of that circle. And then I'm inking it up in some Memento ink, and I cannot off the top of my head recall what this ink is, but I will of course link it in the description below. And I'm going to bring in a piece of scratch paper so that I can protect my work surface, and I'm just going to stamp this image repeatedly along this circle line that I have. Now, I have to tell you, in the end, I did not use this here. I substituted it with the mistletoe stamp instead, but you can kind of get an idea of the way that you can use and layer up these stamps. I wanted to leave this in because it's another option if you wanted to kind of mix and match the stamp sets. So now I'm going to take the mistletoe here, and I have that stamp, and I've mounted it on my stamp block, and I'm going to ink it up in the Pear Tart Memento ink. And then I'm taking my Festive Berries Distress marker, and I'm just coloring in the berries that are on that. Now I haven't wiped off the green ink that was on there originally. I just left it on there. It did not ruin my marker. I just went right over the top. And once I get all of those berries covered in red ink, I'm going to lift this up to my mouth and kind of open mouth breathe, or what we used to call huff on the stamp, to kind of re-moisten the ink. And then I'm going to clean it off, and I'm going to do this same procedure. I don't know, maybe I have nursing on the brain today, but process, I guess that's the word I'm looking for. I'm going to do the same process again. I'm going to ink it up in the green ink and color the berries with the Festive Berries Distress marker. Now, I have to tell you, I did this several times. I filled up the paper, and I'm going to cut them out here in a minute. But when I saw the name of this stamp set, I could not help but think of the song. My mom always used to sing it at Christmas. Oh my gosh, by golly, It's time for mistletoe and holly. So I kept singing that over and over again, and I realized that I don't know any more of the words of that song. That's the only phrase that I know. So now I have this little berry sprig here, or little twig with berries on it, and I'm doing the same thing, inking it up in the green ink and then coloring in the red berries. And now I have the coordinating dies, and I'm just going to position those over and use a little piece of Post-it tape to keep them in place. Now you saw me kind of pull off the Post-it tape, and I stuck it to the back of my hand first because it takes away a little bit of the sticky so that it's not too sticky. Does that make any sense at all? And now I'm breaking off. I realized I didn't have this little berry sprig die, so I'm just breaking that off and positioning that over as well. And then I'm just going to run them through my Big Shot. Now I'm using my magnetic platform here, but you could use your regular platform as well because I have positioned these with some Post-it tape to keep them in place. And then once I get my sandwich all made, I have my magnetic platform, my cutting pad, my paper with the dies, and then my second cutting pad. I'm just going to run those through, and I'm going to do this several times and cut out all of these different little sprigs of mistletoe and holly, but it's not really holly, it's just mistletoe. So, and this is going to allow me to layer these up on the card and create a lot of dimension. Now, this may look like it took quite a bit of time, and I don't think that it actually did. Once I got the idea in my head and I just went at it, stamping these and cutting them out did not take too long at all. But do make sure that you clean your stamp in between each of those stamped images. So you can see here, this is where I stamped the pine, and I started to kind of layer these up, and I decided I really didn't like that pine coming out from underneath it. But I wanted to leave this in here because I wanted to show you that you can layer the different elements up and really make a beautiful and full looking wreath. So now I'm going to start all over again. I'm going to re-emboss or deboss a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock with my We Are Memory Keepers circle die. And so like I said before, I have that guide. Now, if you wanted to pencil this in, you could, but because I was going to be stamping over the top of it, I didn't want to risk ruining my ink, and so I just created that deboss line to help me make a nice round wreath. So I've inked up this mistletoe stamp again, and you can see here I'm actually wiping off the stem. I'm not stamping the stem part of it, and I've curved it along that circle shape again, and I'm just stamping it here, and I'm creating the base of my wreath. Now, stamping on the base of the card is going to add a lot more fullness to this wreath when we get it all put together. And I have all of my little mistletoe sprigs here, and I'm just trimming off the stem of those because I realized that for this particular card, I just liked it better without the stem. So I'm just using my scissors here and just cutting that in a circular kind of fashion to make it not so quite harsh and straight. I don't know, does that make any sense to you at all? And I'm just kind of layering these up here and positioning them over. Now, you noticed that the image that I stamped on the base of the card, it did not go all the way around. There were some blank spots, and that's okay because as I put these die cut images and pieces over, it's going to really fill in and make that wreath really full. So here is the little holly berry sprig, and I'm just trimming off a little bit of that stem as well and kind of just planning out where I'm going to position all of these. I'm making sure that I like where I'm going with this card and that I have enough room for my sentiment as well when I get all of these pieces adhered. So now that I have them here, I almost wiped them off there. Did you see that? But I thought better, and I went ahead and took a picture with my handy dandy iPhone, which is always by my side. And that way, when I go to reposition these again, I know exactly where I need to place them. And I'm just going to put them in this little pinch bowl to keep track of them while I work on some more pieces of this card. So I'm prepping the card base here with a little EK Success powder tool because I am going to gold heat emboss the Be Merry sentiment that is in the stamp set. So you can see that there. I'm placing it there to make sure that I have plenty of room for this sentiment, and then I'm going to pick it up with my block and ink it up in some Versamark ink and stamp it right on to the card base there. And I kind of like to use my grid mat to make sure that I have everything straight. Otherwise, I tend to go kind of crooked on everything. So that grid mat really helps me keep everything straight. So you'll notice that I line it up on my grid mat before I stamp anything down. So now that I have that image stamped, I'm just adding a little Ranger Superfine Detail embossing powder in gold. And then I am going to use this little piece of scrap paper to kind of funnel all that extra embossing powder back into the jar. I'm going to let my heat tool heat up nice and hot before I take it to my paper, and then I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss and set that. Now I kind of like to heat emboss from the front and back to minimize warping, but you can kind of experiment and see what works for you. So once I have that sentiment all embossed on the card base, I'm going to go ahead and add some foam adhesive to all of these pieces. Now, like I said before, the base stamping really helps me to create a really full looking wreath because I can't lay these on top of each other quite the way I want to when I have them all cut out. So creating that base on the card base is really important. And once I get the foam adhesive added to all of these little die cuts, I'm going to just use my iPhone picture for reference, make sure that I have everything where I want it, and then I'm going to begin adhering it right over the stamped images onto the card base. Once again, I have that debossed image there, and that's acting as my guide, so I know exactly where I need to position things to keep my wreath nice and round. So as I go along, I'm just going to remove the backer pieces of the foam that's on these and just place them onto my wreath. Now, when I added these, I also added foam adhesive to the berries that are going to sit over the top. So as you kind of build the layers, you're getting a lot of dimension and fullness because you have the stamping on the background, you have the foam adhesive on the die cut pieces, and then here are those little berry sprigs that I'm adding as well with some foam adhesive. So I have 3 different layers that are actually happening on this card. So I'm going to finish off building my wreath, which I love how this turned out. It honestly turned out way better than I thought it would. I am so pleased with the softness of the colors and that mix of gold. I just thought it was a really great combination. And once I get all of those adhered, I'm going to lift it up and just trim off the edges, the parts that are hanging over the edge to create a really nice clean edge along the card base. And I'll show you here. Do you see all of the dimension that you get? It just feels like it's blooming off of the card, and I'm trying to show you here. You can kind of see the dimension there of that wreath just really coming off the card. So I love the wreath, but I felt like it needed just a little bit of embellishing. So I am using these little tiny jingle bells. These are from Pretty Pink Posh. I'm not even sure if they're called jingle bells, but in my mind, they are jingle bells. And they're even better because they're gold and they really do jingle. And so I've gotten a few of those out, and I'm just going to use, this is a floss threader. Now, my kids have all been in orthodontics at the same time. I have 3. And so my orthodontist is really nice because I've given him a lot of my money, and he gives me these floss threaders free. Isn't that nice of him? So I am going to thread some gold thread through that floss threader, and then I'm going to put my jingle bells onto this gold thread. I have 3 of them there, and once I get them all threaded onto that gold thread, I'm going to go ahead and tie a little bow in that and use this as my little accent piece for my wreath. Now, if you don't have an orthodontist who is as generous as mine is, I'm sure you can pick these up at the drugstore as well. And they actually make a really good tool to have in your stash for threading things like buttons and that sort of thing, because the eye of that floss threader is really large, but it's also really flexible. So it can go through really small things, but you can also thread really thick things like twine through it as well. So you can see I finally have these all threaded up on my gold thread here, and I'm just going to tie that in a bow and kind of just pull the ends. I kind of had to fuss with this bow just a little bit. That really fine gold thread is on the more challenging end to tie, but I think in the end it's worth a little bit of frustration to get this adorable delicate gold bow. And then I'm going to attach this little bow and bell cluster with a glue dot onto my wreath there. And this was kind of fun because I just kind of picked it up and shook it around, and it had a really nice jingle sound to it. Now this might be hard to put through the mail, but it is definitely something that you could hand deliver. Now for my card base, I decided to use this really beautiful wood grain embossed tan cardstock from the Essentials by Ellen line. I love to use this wood grain paper for holiday cards. I love it in the white as well as the tan. I couldn't pick a favorite, but today I picked a really earthy tan for this. I cut it at 5.5, so it measures 5.5 by 8.5, and I scored it at 4.25 to create a horizontal A2 card. And then before I adhere this all down, I'm going to go ahead and round the bottom right hand corner with the We Are Memory Keepers 3/8 inch corner chomper. Now I've also cut down a piece of this Tim Holtz metallic cardstock in the gold, and it's really cool because it has a craft core as well. And it comes in gold, silver, and like a copper all in one pad. It's a really great pad to have around, especially with the holidays coming. And I'm just going to kind of layer these up here. And I've used a little fun foam behind that gold layer to add a little bit of lift to this card base as well, so that it has even more dimension. And to finish my card off, I wasn't quite done, so I'm going to use a little wink of Stella right over the berries. Now you'll see here as I'm putting it on, I'm actually tapping it on because I don't want to smear that Distress ink. Remember, Distress ink activates with water, so I didn't want to smear it and move it all off. So I just kind of tapped that wink of Stella onto those berries to give it a little bit of shimmer and shine. And that completes my card for today, featuring the mistletoe and holly stamp and die set from the Essentials by Ellen line. As always, I will have links to all the products used in this project in the description at YouTube, as well as over at my blog, where you can see even more projects that I've created using the Essentials by Ellen Holiday 2015 release. And be sure you head on over there because I have a giveaway as well that closes on August 11th for the Got Candy stamp set. Thanks for stopping by today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a fabulous day.